The Middle East war is reverberating across Europe, where petrol prices are already surging. Deutsche Welle correspondent Chiponda Chimbelu joins us now from Berlin. Chiponda, g'day. So how exposed are European countries to the ongoing conflict?
Well, Joe, European countries are, of course, very much exposed to the ongoing war, and that is because they are net energy importers. Now, most of Europe, Germany included, has been diversifying away from Russian energy exports since 2022, and part of that has also meant importing more gas and oil from the Middle East, and that is what makes European countries especially vulnerable to the ongoing war. Now, we've already seen gas prices rising to levels last seen after Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. And here in Germany, they've been hovering just past €2 a litre this week. Now, ordinary Germans are therefore already feeling the pain. And this, of course, also comes at a time when Europe's gas storage levels are at historic lows. And given that Qatar, which accounts for around a sixth of Europe's gas supplies, is unable to export its LNG exports through the Strait of Hormuz, that is, of course, a big concern here in Europe.
And so which sectors in Europe are feeling the most immediate impact?
Well, apart from the direct impact on the energy sector and the disruption on tourism and travel, the other sector that is experiencing major disruption is logistics. Now, many insurers have been, of course, cancelling war risk coverage for logistics companies, and that is already affecting the decisions that many logistics firms are making. Now, two shipping giants, there's Denmark's Maersk and Germany's Hapag-Lloyd, are already rerouting ships around the southern tip of Africa. So this conflict isn't only affecting the passage through the Strait of Hormuz, but also via the Suez Canal, and that will, of course, increase the cost of moving goods significantly. So it's not just about the higher fuel prices, it's also about the higher cost of moving goods, which, of course, now have to travel over longer distances.
Yeah, and how much worse could the situation get if the conflict continues?
One major concern is how this war could, of course, affect consumer prices. But, of course, here in Europe, that's not the only concern. European leaders are also thinking about how this conflict in the Middle East could affect the war that is even closer to home, and that is, of course, the war in Ukraine. Russia is, of course, a major exporter of oil and gas, and it stands to benefit from the higher energy prices. Now, if crude oil prices were to rise above $100 a barrel and remain there, it could potentially add $4.6 billion every month to Russian revenues. And that is, of course, money that could be used to finance the war in Ukraine, because, of course, countries like India and China may be forced to turn to Russian oil exports because of the disruption in the Middle East. Now, the U.S. has already granted India a 30-day waiver to buy Russian oil. But, of course, it's not just about Russia getting more oil revenues. The war could also tie up U.S. military aid that could have potentially gone to Ukraine. And that is, of course, why European leaders do not want to see this conflict drag on.
Yeah, you raised some really interesting points there. OK, Chiponda Chimbelu in Berlin. The town of Catherine in the Northern Territory is flooding for the first time in 2 decades, and residents are being urged to move to higher ground.